We may be able to alter ourselves, to create ourselves to populate the universe. The question of immortality is on the table. We may exist in a world where artificial intelligence is the norm. It will be able to manipulate matter, manipulate energy, manipulate life itself in a way that we would consider to be magic. Instead of trying to readapt Mars, why not readapt ourselves? This is science fiction, but it's possible.
The This Is World channel is partnered with IQM, one of the world's largest quantum computing companies.
Let's say that one day you're allowed to meet your ancestor who lived a few hundred years from now, and you were to talk to your ancestor about airplanes, about rockets, about computers. What would your ancestor think? Your ancestor would think, you're crazy. What? Images from the ether? What? Journeying to the moon? What? Computers that can calculate 1,000,000 times faster than the human brain? What are you talking about? So our ancestors would think that we live in a world of science fiction. We live in a world of trains and rockets and atomic bombs that our ancestors would think is impossible. So if we were to visit one of our children, our great-great-great-grandchildren, a few hundred years from now, what would we think of them? You see, our ancestors would think of us being wizards that can create images out of nowhere, wizards that can communicate around the world instantaneously. That's what our ancestors would think of us, that we are wizards. What would we think of our children's children's children? We would think of them as being gods. And so in other words, the world of the future is a world similar to mythology, a world of the gods. So our great-great-great-grandkids, they will live in a world where we can control life, where we can control matter and energy, things that are impossible today, but is the plaything of gods.
Uncontrolled reality, that's our future.
That could be it. That we would be able to control reality, control life, control matter. We would think of that today as the world of magicians and voodoo artists. But that could be the world of our great-great-great-grandkids. I think 100 years from now, our descendants will live like the Greek gods of the ancient times. They will be able to manipulate matter, manipulate energy, manipulate life itself in a way that we would consider to be magic. We would be able to manipulate our genome. Today, we can manipulate our genome one gene at a time. In the future, we'll be able to manipulate our genome perhaps as an entire quantity, not just one gene at a time, and able, therefore, to alter the course of life itself. So in other words, instead of using this technology to heal, to be able to cure diseases, we may be able to alter ourselves, to create ourselves to populate the universe. In other words, we may ultimately change the destiny of the human race itself. For example, if we colonize Mars, realize that Mars has a different gravitational field, different atmosphere, different temperature. Instead of trying to readapt Mars, why not readapt ourselves? To remodify ourselves so that we can survive in these environments around the universe. And so instead of looking at planets with hostile environments, why not alter ourselves so that we can survive in these? This is science fiction, but it's possible. One of the great frontiers is the human brain. Throughout history, the human brain was basically a black box. And just recently, we're beginning to understand that there are mechanical analogs to the thinking process. And eventually, we'll realize that the brain is in part quantum mechanical. And this is where quantum computers come in. Quantum computers already exist. And they, in some sense, compute somewhat similar to what the human brain would compute if it's quantum mechanical. The digital world is deterministic. The digital world is Newtonian. But a quantum computer exists in a world of quantum mechanics and exists in a world of infinite states. And these already exist. We have quantum computers. They're not ready for prime time yet, but the ones that we've built so far are millions of times more powerful than any digital computer today. The problem is they can only work on one problem at a time. They're not all-purpose, like a digital computer today can add, subtract, do many things simultaneously. A quantum computer can only do one quantum mechanical operation at a given time, but they are in principle millions of times more powerful than any digital computer, and many people think that could be the future. The future is when we have quantum computers that are millions of times more powerful than anything on your desktop today. And so we're talking about a new era where we can change ourselves. Now, this means that the question of immortality is on the table. There are two kinds of immortality. One is digital immortality, and one is organic immortality. Digital immortality is when you create a clone of yourself that is mechanical, that has basically many of your memories, thought patterns, and looks like you. And the first generation of these digital immortals has already existed. What we do is we create an image of yourself that moves and talks, and you talk to this image. And this image is accesses a tape recorder that has interviewed you and got your entire biography. This was done with William Shatner of Star Trek fame. For several days, he was interviewed about his life, his ideas, his thoughts, his history, and it was put into an image of him that will live forever. So this is digital immortality, something which is attainable today, in fact, rather primitive today, but it's possible to attain digital immortality so that you can have a conversation with your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandkids about life in the 21st century. Digital immortality is when you can keep your secrets to yourself. Because what you do is you speak in front of a tape recorder that creates an image of you talking in real time and people asking you questions and you answering them. So digital immortality is something that is attainable today, and it would make your thoughts visible forever, and you would be able to have a conversation with your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandkids, okay? But if you have secrets, you can keep your secrets to yourself. So your secrets will die with you. The other kind of immortality is much more difficult, and that is organic immortality, that your physical being lives forever. And there have been several proposals for this. One proposal is to basically digitize the brain itself. You take a brain of a mosquito or a fly, and you can clone it, and you can create a copy of it and dissect it. This has been done already. The world's record for dissecting the brain of an insect is 100,000. 100,000 neurons will allow you to dissect neuron for neuron the brain of an insect. Our brain has 100 billion neurons, not just 100,000 neurons, but it's only a matter of time before we can digitize the human brain itself, not just 100,000 neurons, but 100 billion neurons. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to place yourself on a stretcher, and sitting next to you is a robot. When the brain is then exposed, neuron for neuron, another duplicate is created inside the robot. And then these neurons are then hooked up to each other one by one. Now, of course, this is possible, but not practical with today's technology. We cannot manipulate neuron for neuron the architecture of the human brain. But that's a technical problem. So we're talking about putting the brain into a computer or a computer into a brain. And so the two become the same, basically. This is all possible, and it's been looked at. Of course, it would take centuries for us to be able to do this process, but it's possible. We can now connect the human brain to a laptop computer and have the laptop computer execute many, many patterns that are considered to be human-like. This has been done because there have been so many GIs wounded in Afghanistan and Iraq that the United States military has made it a priority to have these heroes of warfare be able to control a computer so they can walk, they can talk, they can perform many human functions even though they are functionally paralyzed. And so this is progress today, that using computers, it's possible to interface the human brain with the laptop computer, which in turn can control your movements.
Quick heads up. The tech Michio's describing is being built right now by Paradromics, the company we just hosted. Here's a short excerpt.
Paradromics builds high data rate brain-computer interfaces, which are essentially modems that connect brains to computers. So I have one in my pocket today. This is an example of a high data rate brain-computer interface. You can place it on the surface of the brain. It has 421 platinum iridium microwires, and these wires can record from individual neurons. So why is that interesting? Well, for someone who's lost the ability to speak, lost the ability to move, they have signals in their brain that are trying to tell their body what to do. They're trying to direct their mouth, their tongue, and their larynx to produce speech, or they're trying to direct the hands to move, but the signals don't make it from the brain to the body. But they're still there. So if you take a device like this and you place it in an area of the brain called the motor cortex, you can allow people who have lost the ability to speak again through a computer.
Watch the full interview with Matt Angle on our channel.
This was done for the Olympics. The Olympics that took place in Sao Paulo, Brazil a few years ago was initiated by a man who was totally paralyzed. Here was a man totally paralyzed. He was put into a skeleton, a digital skeleton that was connected to his brain. Therefore, he was able to stand up and walk. He was totally paralyzed, but by thinking, he was able to control the exoskeleton, which would allow him to walk, and he initiated the World Cup soccer games in Sao Paulo, Brazil, even though he was totally paralyzed. Now that's today. In the future, we could become supermen or superwomen. Well, right now we're at the early stages of this. All we can do is take paralyzed people and give them back the gift of movement. That's today. In the future, we may be able to give them super movements. That is the ability to move things that only a robot could create. In other words, these people would be superhuman. And one possibility is that these superhumans would then colonize Mars and begin to colonize the universe because they are superhuman in their physique.
Upgraded version of us.
That's right. Now, this is possible, I think, within 100 years or so. Now let's take it to 1,000 years. How could we then explore the universe 1,000 years from now? I think it's possible that at that point, we'll be able to digitize ourselves, put our thinking process into software, put the software into a rocket, and shoot the rocket throughout the universe. Once the rocket lands on the moon, it then hooks up to an exoskeleton, and thereby allowing you to control an exoskeleton on the moon. You can also shoot these exoskeletons throughout the universe, and therefore be able to explore the universe mentally by shooting your consciousness throughout the universe. Now this, of course, is not possible for a few hundred years.
And living forever.
Your biological body may have a finite lifespan, Unless, of course, we can figure out organic immortality, in which case we can replace organs as they wear out. So organs as they wear out may be replaced to give you organic immortality. And this organic immortality may allow you to control a robot that could then be shot throughout the universe, and you could then begin to colonize the universe, perhaps near the speed of light. All of this is well within the laws of physics, beyond our capabilities today, but I think possible.
Do you believe that we can ever create a consciousness machine?
It depends on how you define consciousness. There's no unified theory of consciousness at the present time. However, I do think it's possible to create an object that can size up its position, understand its location, understand its position in the universe, and initiate conversations with you. Is that consciousness? I don't know. There's no definition of consciousness that is universally accepted. Get a dictionary, look up the word consciousness, and you realize that there's no uniform agreement as to what it is. But I think in the future it may be possible to create a machine that is aware of itself, aware of its surroundings, aware of who is out there, and communicate, ask questions, interact with other beings. I think that is possible.
How this ordinary day could look like?
A day when? What time period?
In 2050.
The question that is often asked is, okay, if you're a scientist, then predict the future. Tell me what the future is going to look like. Well, first of all, I don't know what the future is going to look like. But what I can say is I think that we can make educated guesses. Educated guesses because we know the trajectory of physics and chemistry. You see, our ancestors lived in a world of magic, a world of witchcraft. There were no rules. There was no equations, no principles to guide them. Today, we have the principles. We have the equations. We have the framework. That doesn't mean we can accurately predict the future, but we can make intelligent guesses. So, for example, computers. We would know that computers will be quantum mechanical. And as a consequence, they would be millions of times more powerful than what we have today. And therefore, artificial intelligence could become a reality. In which case, we may exist in a world where artificial intelligence is the norm.
The This Is World channel is partnered with IQM, one of the world's largest quantum computing companies.